Next, we're going to work on InDesign Classroom in a Book, Chapter 10, which is all about importing and modifying graphics. We're going to start with Canvas. Go ahead, go to Assignment, Chapter 10, and grab that InDesign zip file. Make sure you download it to either your desktop or your flash drive. I've already downloaded it to my desktop. Once on my desktop, I'm going to right-click, extract all, and open up all the files. Alright, so let's go ahead and see what the files included this time are. This time we've got a folder full of fonts. We also have a folder full of quite a few different image files, both Illustrator and Photoshop. What's great about InDesign is it does allow us to import files directly from Photoshop and Illustrator. It was once upon a time you had to convert all those files into a JPEG, a PNG, an EPS, a TIFF, a GIF, something else in order to bring them in. Now Adobe makes it really easy to seamlessly work between those different programs. Let's go ahead and hit Start and take a peek at what we have. We are going to say don't update links this time because we want to be able to see the different elements that the lesson is showing us. Alright, so let's go ahead and start with looking at the difference between a vector and a raster image. A vector image is drawn with mathematics. It can be scaled from anything from the size of a favorite icon up to a billboard, and we don't lose any quality. A raster image is built on pixels, which is why this comes in all fuzzy, because it can't mathematically make up what is supposed to be in those different areas, and so we get a really poor result. So I'm constantly telling y'all, you can make a big image little, you cannot make a little image big. You'll never get the quality that you're looking for, and you'll suffer every single time. Alright, let's do File and Save As. And this one is going to be called 10 CD Insert. And I'm in my Chapter 10 folder, so I'm going to go ahead and push Save. So what we're going to notice when we're looking at our document is that we've got quite a few. If we go to our Links panel, go to Pages, go to Links, you've got quite a few of these indicators. I'm going to make this a little bit longer so we can see what's going on, that show we have modified graphics here, and there's a problem. It's telling us we need to pay attention to what has been done here. So let's go ahead and go to page number 4, which has got the hand and this Orchard of Kings. Remember I talked about the difference between InDesign actually placing the image versus placing a preview. The preview is what is placed right here, and that's why it's all jaggedy and weird looking. You can go to View, Display Performance, and change to High Quality, and you'll get a slightly better, but because this has been modified, it's still not going to turn into a nice clear graphic. So we want to go ahead, grab our selection tool, go over here to that Orchard of Kings, and let's go ahead and double click the triangle there, and notice it automatically is going to update and relink that for us. So we want to have that document be repaired. So if we look at our links folder now, we will find, if we do the drop down right here, that that one does not have that modified next to it, that we have repaired that one. Alright, so what's the next thing we can do? Let's go to this 10G. If I click on this number, the page number, it'll actually take me to the graphic, and I can see it's this big hand. Now, instead of going through and relinking here, I can go ahead and go down to my panel and hit Relink. And it's going to say, okay, what do you want me to relink to? I want you to relink to 10G right here, and hit Open. So that's going to go ahead and fix that one. So you want to go ahead, and we've got to make sure that we get all of these fixed, because for every one of those exclamation points we get an error, and clearly we don't want any errors when we are creating our documents. Let's take a peek at a few things we can see when we're in the links document. We were just at 10G. If you do the toggle the arrow right here, you'll go ahead and get a panel right here that's got link info, which is going to tell you all about that image itself. It's going to tell us what page it's used on. It's going to tell you what profile it is. This one's RGB, so it's in red, green, blue. It's going to tell us our actual PPI and our effective PPI. Our PPI is our points per inch. For screen, 72 is fine. For a print, 72 is way too low, and you're going to get a really fuzzy image when you print it out. So for print, we want 300. The effective PPI means what does it look like. So in this case, they have taken a small image and tried to make it big. If you look at the scale, so it really is giving us about the quality of a 44 pixel per inch. So that's why it's really, really grainy and really kind of gross, and you don't want to take those little pictures and make them big. So when I'm going through telling you make sure all your images in your publications are 300 dpi, you need to go through those links and double check and make sure that they are 300. Otherwise, you've got to go into Photoshop and edit them and change the resolution a little bit. Alright, so what are some of the other things that we can see in this file? Let's go ahead under links and go to our hamburger menu. And we want the one that says panel options, which is down here at the bottom. On panel options, we have the ability to see different types of columns. We want to go ahead and make sure we see color space. We want to see actual PPI, which is point per inch, and effective PPI. And let's go ahead and show transparency and say OK. So if I expand this column now, I can actually see all this different information is now being shown to me. So at a glance, I can now see, bring that down, which of my images will need to be upscaled or resized. And it's a really easy way for you to check your publications. It doesn't make any sense to miss points because you didn't do that one little check. Alright, so what's another thing we can do? Let's go ahead and look at 10G again. We can actually see where is this file coming from. So from our flyout menu with 10G selected, we're going to go ahead and do Reveal in Explorer, which means show me where this file is in Windows Explorer. So sometimes you might find that you are looking for a link, an image that you just can't find. This is one way to figure out where it is so you can put it in the right folder. Alright, so we can go ahead and close that, go back to InDesign. So what are some other ways that we can go through and fix a few of these errors? Let's go ahead and go to this 10i, which has got a problem. And if we notice, 10i has been used in a couple different places. If we go ahead and hit this third one, go to link, here at the bottom, it'll actually take us to where that link is being used. And we can go ahead and tell it on the links panel to update that link. So it's going to go through and it'll fix that one as well. Alright, so what we can do, instead of having to go through one at a time, you can click this menu at the top of the links panel and do update all links. And if it can find where they are stored, it will update all of them at once, which makes your life a whole lot easier. And you want to do that whenever possible. Alright, let's go ahead and go to 10H PSD, which is those interlocked hands. And let's go ahead and double click it and see what we can see about it. Let's look at it in the, let's go to Bridge, or go to Explorer, and let's go to 10J, and we can double click it and it will automatically open that in Photoshop for us. Any changes that we make in Photoshop to the document will automatically be known to InDesign, and we'll go ahead and tell you you need to import or modify that link. I'm not going to worry about it too much right now. All right. We looked at the difference between display qualities before. So remember, if it comes in jagged, it looks weird, you know that you cleaned it up. Make sure that high quality performance has been checked. It'll make your life a lot easier. You can also do that for individual elements. Let's go to page. Let's go to our Orchard of Kings. We can, with our selection tool, click the document you want to look at, the image. You can right click and display performance and change it to high quality display if you want to do just an individual image. I think it's easier just to do the entire document, but it depends on how big it is and how fast your computer is. Alright, let's look at a few things that we can also play with. We're going to play with adding some images to our CD. So let's go ahead and look at pages. Let's go ahead and go down to this page 6, where we've got these couple of different squares going on. We're actually going to put things into the square. Actually, let's go ahead and do it on page 7 instead. Let's look at those squares instead. Alright, so what we're going to do is, when you work with different documents, you have the ability to manipulate links in a few different ways. One of them you can do is called creating clipping paths in Photoshop, which allows you to create different types of images based on what you already have. So they've already done this with some pairs for us. We're going to go ahead and go to File and Place. And we want the one called Pairs. So scroll down a little bit. And I'm going to go ahead and double click it. And it's going to load my cursor. I do not want to put it in the square itself. I want to put it over the square. I want that square to be the background. So I'm going to click just outside. I'm going to get those pairs. The next thing I want to do is go to Object and go down to Clipping Path. And I want Options. On our type, we want to say Photoshop Path because someone has already manipulated that image for us. I could use my panel. So now I can see that there's a path or an outline drawn around each of the pairs. So I want the path that says 2 pairs. And I'm going to say OK. So now notice how we brought in one that had a background, but now we have one that does not have a background, which is pretty cool. I'm going to grab my selection tool. I'm going to grab my pairs. Now you notice you can still see the background, but because we're doing clipping path, it's hiding that for us. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to Shift Control on there and pull the corner. And notice how it's resizing those pairs for us. Alright, let's go ahead and put them about there. We want to go ahead and shrink this frame to fit what we're actually showing. So we're going to go to Object and Fitting. And we want Fit Frame to Content. So now that frame is only showing what's the pairs, but we can tell by the purple outline there's actually a whole bunch more there. Alright, so what else we can do? We want to go ahead and hit Alt and drag our pairs. We want to drag them up, but we're going to change it just a little bit because we don't want both pairs. We only want one of the pairs. So we're going to go to Object. We're going to go to Clipping Path. We're going to go to Options. Instead of 2 pairs, this time I just want the right pair. So now it's showing me just the right pair, which is pretty cool. And we're going to say OK. Once again, we're going to go to Object, Fitting, Fit Frame to Content. So it shrinks so that green graphics box shows us it's only the one. And we want to go ahead and rotate that pair a little bit. And it's a little bit too big for where we want it to go. So we can go ahead and go up to our scale, which is up here. Up here. No, it's not. Let's go ahead, do Control, Alt, And let's go ahead and grab that corner with our selection tool. Control Shift and Control Shift, bring it down, scale it a little bit. Bring it over. And I want to rotate it just a tiny bit. So I can either go and get my round corners and tip it. And you'll notice your number right here is changing. So if I want to tip it more than 10, I can say let's go ahead and tip it to -28. It'll automatically tip that to be -28 for me, which is pretty cool. And if I want to, I can use my arrow keys and nudge it over a little tiny bit so that I get that in the box. I'm going to take my selection tool, nudge those other two pairs over a little bit as well. They're kind of in the way. Alright, so now we've got 3 pairs. We want to add one more pair. So what we can do is hit our selection tool, hit Alt and drag, and now I've got a copy of that as well. Once I'm going to go to Object, Clipping Path, Options. This time I want just the left pair. And say OK. And I want to Object, Fitting, Fit Frame to Content, so I get just the one. And I'm going to go ahead and let's go ahead, Control Shift with our selection tool, not a direct selection. Control Shift, bring it down. So I've got my pair. I'm going to put that pair right in here between the two different pairs. And I could rotate that one a little bit as well. So instead of 0 degrees, let's go ahead and put in, oh, they want 22. And enter. So now we've shifted that one just a little bit as well. I'm going to go ahead and use my arrow keys and nudge it just a little tiny bit. So you can see how out of one image we've now created several. Alright, so one of the next things we're going to do is add some information over here by the hands. So I'm going to use my drag, and I'm going to go ahead and pull this down. You can also do this by holding down the space bar. Hold the space bar, it'll give you the hand, and you can pull your document back and forth that way as well. So if you don't want to use your sliders, you can go ahead and grab that hand tool as well. We're going to go ahead and draw a rectangle frame. So go over to your left hand side, you want the rectangle frame. And we want to go ahead and draw a rectangle frame right here across the bottom. Alright, so what's the next thing we're going to do? We want to do Object. We want to go to Fitting. We want Fitting Options. And we want to tell it to go ahead and whatever we put in here, we want it to fit the content proportionally. And we want to do it from the top center. So instead of doing it after we brought the image in, we're doing it before. So we're saying, okay, let's go to File and Place. And this time we're going to go ahead and grab the tulips. So let's scroll down and grab tulips.psd and open. And notice how it fit that frame proportionally for us automatically. That's pretty cool. I'm going to go ahead and hit outside my pasteboard to deselect all. Alright, so now we want to do a few things with these tulips. They're not quite where we want them to be. We want to go ahead and go to our Layers panel. And we want to make sure that we don't mess up our text, so we're going to go ahead and lock our text. Now we're going to go down to our tulips. And we want to grab the content grabber. So you see how it made the purple much smaller box than if we were to grab that frame, because we want to actually mess with the image itself. Alright, we want to go ahead and make sure it's on this upper center, and we're going to go ahead and scale it larger. So I like to do the Control Shift and bring it open. And you can kind of scale it so it's bigger. So I only see the tops of those tulips. I can make it a little bit bigger if I want to and adjust it. Alright, so what else can we do? We see that the edges are kind of blended into the background. That's because we created that soft brush effect in Photoshop. So we manipulated the image before we brought it into our InDesign document. Alright, so what else can we do? There's quite a few other things we can do when we are bringing images in from Photoshop itself. So we're going to do something called playing with the alpha channels. So we're going to go to our layers panel, and we're going to make sure that we're on the photos layer. So we're working on that one. Let's go to pages and go to page 2. So we get these pair of hands right here, right in here. That's what we're going to work with. Let's go to our File Explorer, and we want to go ahead and open up that 10D PSD. So that's going to open in Photoshop itself. That'll take a minute if you don't have Photoshop open. Alright, so we've got this file here. There's quite a few things that have been done to this file before we were here to play with it. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to minimize this. I'm going to minimize my Explorer window. I don't want it to be too small. I want to shrink it. I don't want to minimize it. Because what you can do is actually drag directly from your Explorer into InDesign itself. So I'm going to go ahead and bring it over here to my pasteboard and click it on. So that's just another way, instead of file place, it's another way of bringing that image into InDesign. Alright, so let's go ahead and grab our selection tool and line this up with the bottom part of the page. This funky hand. So what else can we do? Let's go ahead and look at our hand. In the links panel, we can go down here and there's a little pencil. It says Edit Original. So it'll go ahead and open that up for us in Photoshop. So let's take a look at what we have here. Let's go to Window and let's go to Channels. Channels is going to show you quite a few things have been done with this image before we started. So we've created different types of what's called channels, or ways to look at this individual image. They were done using the masking tool. Alright, so let's go ahead and take a peek and click on those individual channels, and you can see different things that have been done and different elements, different ways you can see those different elements that were created. So it gives you quite a few different options as a designer to create a lot of different effects. Let's go ahead and switch back to our InDesign. With our selection tool, make sure your hand is selected. Let's go to Object. We're going to go down here to Clipping Path, and we want Options. We want to make sure Preview is selected. And from Options, you can go ahead and choose Alpha Channel. And it's going to say, okay, what do you want to see? And remember, we looked at it in Photoshop. We have quite a few different things that were created for us in the Alpha Channel. So quite a few different ways we can play with it. We're going to go ahead and choose Alpha 3. And we want to do Include Inside Edges. And notice now, remember it had that butterfly. The Include Inside Edges now brings us that butterfly as well. Alright, so let's go back ahead and go up to Type. Let's go to Photoshop Path. Let's go ahead and choose Circle instead of Shapes. So now we've got this circle. We're going to go ahead and choose that circle and say OK. Let's do a Control S and save what we've got so far.